Hey there, folks. Mark Lewis. Welcome back to another edition of Warehousing Wednesdays. And got an interesting one. I think you guys are going to enjoy our quick chat today. Longtime coworker, friend, associate, etc. Dan Ahearn is joining us today. I saw a post on LinkedIn Dan put out about a week ago and pinged him. And I said, I asked him what's going on. And we started chatting and like, what do people care about? What's on your mind? You're a consultant. You're going in and talking to things. And one of them was, what people care about is labor. And that's always true, but it's always one of those high topics. And we kind of went off that tangent on our conversation. And I think that we're going to try to share a small condensed version with you today. With that, Dan, let you introduce yourself and we'll get this thing going.
Well, thanks for having me, Mark. Glad to be here. Based in Dallas, Texas. Been doing this for a long, long time. I got my start in the WMS business back at Frito-Lay and been doing it ever since. So I'm glad to be here. I'm currently at Tryon Solutions now, supporting the space. I can remember back in my operational days, my last operational role, I was running one of the earlier .com grocery facilities. Everybody remembers the web van days. This building was called shoplink.com, and it was pretty exciting times, but we didn't really have good demand information, and everybody in the building and the organization, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people were grocery people versus supply chain or warehouse people. So there were some growing pains and challenges. But I can tell you that I was a facility manager, and we're dropping really complicated, multiple, 100-piece orders, groceries packed, shipped to someone's house, and it was a labor-intensive stuff, multiple zones. And the biggest thing I worried about was when the orders would drop was would the kids show up to pick the orders? It was a lot of the employees down there. It was a good market. People were moving around to different companies. It was the very peak of the .com boom. So we had a real challenge around getting the work done. And then I think about, so that was a staffing issue with people not showing up. And then the other component is, visibility to what's actually happening in the business. I was running a big CPG 1 million square foot facility, and I had, 7 days a week, 3 shifts per day. And you walk into the beginning of the shift and you got 30 guys standing around and a bucket full of pick tickets, and you hand the work out and you kind of hope it happens. Well, it was always a challenge for me. I had a guy named Sal. He would put work out there. He'd expect it back, and because he had the nuance and understanding of how the business operates. The WMS didn't have that. It was attached to the ERP, the TMS. Dock door 1 open. You're missing this. Go to that location. It wasn't enough granular data. That kind of technology is coming our way now, and so finally you can get some actionable information. Who should get this work to start off with, and then where should we be at the midpoint? Should I make changes? We didn't have that before. So then the third component of that, of course, you weave into that robotics and automation, and now you're able to work more efficiently. But the demands are on the operations folks, right? It's never been harder, more expected by the customer, shorter time frames, and everything happens at the last mile. So it's got to do more with less.
You really do. And you mentioned the people, and we've had a couple of people in this series come in and talk about robotics and cost justification. And I used to sell material handling equipment, so I'm pro that. But I also know that anytime you start implementing hardware, you start locking yourself into processes. Less so now today with goods demand, but still, you got that tool, you need to use that tool. So people are the most flexible things you can bring to the table, but they're also, I think it's fair to say, the least efficient at any specific task. I can build a machine to do that one task. So you're always balancing flexibility with efficiency, and trying to manage those. So if you're prioritizing people, and not trying to be perfect, how do we do that?
Well, I suppose a lot of it has to do with, the organization's maturity and willingness to adapt. I think we've all seen situations where people have problems with throughput and efficiency and labor, and they want to automate it without really being ready for it. I can tell you in recent history, we're working with a customer who ships mainly pallets of canned goods, and they were trying to move to a system that would be mostly LGVs and robotics. And the organization culturally could not grasp that change of work. But you see other places where it's brought into the. In other words, this case maybe wasn't a good solution, I guess is my point. But other cases where, the ASRS and or whatever solution, the robotics of the day, LGVs or whoever, if they're augmenting the people on the floor and making them extend, I just think people are always going to be for the near term a critical link in there. All of this, the logistics and warehousing is a people business. There's corporate knowledge at the customer level happening every day, and I think if I can optimize or maximize a person's ability to make decisions on the floor and maybe leverage equipment or automation or decision making material, that person extends their influence versus replacing them. I just feel like if I can empower the right people, that might be different people. That's a possibility too. But it's kind of like people who say that airplanes will be flying with nobody driving them. Maybe someday, but I think on a warehouse floor we still need people around, and so we'd be better off working to make their jobs easier and more efficient than replacing them. So
I couldn't agree more. I mean, we run here at Redwood. We run several warehouses ourselves. We have one or two 3PL warehouses, and then several that we run as managed services for other clients. And I'm trying to think if we have any true automation. Obviously, we have scanning, things like that. But because we're 3PL, because we're doing services, we lean hard to the flexibility side and try to optimize the people. We can't afford it. I mean, we could afford monetarily, but it would make no sense to try to automate something because it's going to change, in 3 months or something like that. You mentioned, trying to get the most out of that. This is the last topic. My private consulting firm headquarters is called Pareto Supply Chain. It's 80-20 rule, and I live that life. And we kind of bumped into it, like if you're trying to get 80-20 out of your people versus your machines, what are your thoughts on a balance there? When you walk into a warehouse and you go, okay, I can get you 80% of the way there with 20% of the effort or something like that. What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Every successful implementation I've been a part of, there's been heavy involvement and leadership from the folks on the floor doing the work. How many times have you been involved in a project and we have to do it this way, and then because the experts from corporate came and told us that, but the experts from corporate don't know that SAP does this on Tuesdays. Anyway, you get my point. And so you weave them into the process, and even if you do it right and you weave everybody engaged into the process, and it, this is the change management piece, but it's tangible stuff, because if I make a mistake, I have to do it again. If I weave everybody in the process and the process maybe doesn't work optimally, the fact that they were engaged means they're going to want it to work. Even if the systems were very similarly configured and needed some further tweaking, because everything, you have to remember, everything has to be iterated anyway. So You might as well get with those people and get them on your team, because we are gonna make this system work how you want it to work. And if you find the right people, the cream will rise to the top. You find the leadership, they always do. And these guys, when you explain to them, no, we can't do that because of problem A, B, or C is technical, whatever, they can take that word back down to the troops and help you communicate that. So this is kind of soft stuff, but that's categorically, I'd say, when you're trying to get it more efficient, all the good ideas come from the floor.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everybody.
Be well, everybody.
Talk to y'all later.
Care.
Bye.
Cheers.